Testing, 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 testing. Yeah, clearly. Okay, super. Welcome to Functional Skills Level 2. My name's Stephen. I'm just covering for Scott. He's not feeling too well today. So I'm your substitute tutor. Just to let you know a little bit about my background, I'm an assessor, verifier, and EQA. I've been teaching now for over 19 years, and I've been around from the conception of key skills to functional skills, and obviously we're now preparing for the this session really is to give you, the learners, the overview of what functional skills are and what they mean to you within your job role. So, moving on, the aim of the session then is for you to know what functional skills are all about, who our awarding organisations are around the functional skills, what the speaking and listening and communication component composes of, to understand the components around reading and the components around writing. Are there any questions? And if you do have any questions, okay, grand. You can see in the right-hand corner of your desktop, you'll see a little smiley face, and on that little smiley face is a little drop-down arrow, and if you click on that, it does a little hand signal and tells me you want to ask a question, or alternatively, it does little smiley faces like thumbs up or thumbs down, so then it helps you type in. Is that okay, Louise? Can't see it. Bottom right hand corner you have an emotion icon. It's a circle with a face. So on your computer, little tiny circle. If you can't see it, what I'll do, I'll take a screen print this week and then you'll see it and you'll be able to use it moving forward. So within the start of any session, we just need to set a few ground rules, and our first ground, got it, well done. The ground rules really are to obviously be on time, and what we're asking for is, we've told you that the classes start for your Functional Skills English Level 2 every other week, and that's because the alternate week we do Level 1. Now, I'm sure the tutor won't mind if you wanted to attend the Level 1 as well, just to really help upskill yourselves and understand the differences between the levels. And it really depends on how confident you are in your English. If you're confident with your English, we ask you to obviously view these sessions because they will help you develop your functional skills. On to that, the classes, we allow 10 minutes for the class to start, and that's for everybody to get in, and we will then start at 10 past the hour. We then finish at 10 to the hour, making your sessions 40 minutes long. So if people are late, we may at points ask you to hold fire and we'll just email you the session, because sometimes, you know, if the session's in full swing, it's not fair to stop the session. So hopefully you agree that that's a fair outcome. Clearly, we won't accept any abusive or aggressive or non-appropriate language during the English session, especially language, because there's many words in the dictionary and thesaurus, and if you have to use inappropriate ones, it just shows a lack of. So we'll obviously want to keep an eye on that. We want you to participate, and that's using the icons, using your thumbs up, thumbs down, and smiley faces, and also type. Before your sessions, online learning is absolutely no different to walking into a classroom. And one of the things you need to prepare is your mindset and getting yourself ready for your session. We understand that you have a busy life, and we've done this really for convenience and for complete involvement. What we don't want them to become is a last-minute decision that you're going to attend. And like anything, you need to be prepared. So please ensure that you've read any emails from your assessor and make sure that you've got any preparation ready for that session. And that may involve printing out some handouts or having a pen handy for your session. And finally, if you can make sure that you turn your microphones off, because we get a lot of feedback, and when the numbers start growing within these sessions, all you'll get is static, and that gets a bit annoying for you to listen to. So I think you do that. And try to be in an appropriate learning environment. Make sure there's no distractions around you. So can I ask for a thumbs up if you agree to those learning agreements? In your smiley face icon. If you click on your smiley face icon, you should have a thumb. Can you find it? If you can't, don't worry. We'll sort it out for next time. No, it ain't there. We're going to have to work on your English, aren't we? So, starting off then, I'm going to go on my desktop. So this just takes a second, and what will happen is you might get a break in my voice. So I'm going to take you to a document called the off-qual functional skill. Now, you can see on the screen we've got the off-qual regulated functional skills criteria. And on there, you can see that your functional skills in English comes in 5 levels, E1 to L1. It shows that the contents of functional skills must contain speaking, listening, and communication, reading, and writing. It shows that you have 5 levels, so entrance to L2. For your qualifications, you need to level 2, and level 2 is equivalent to your GCSE grades A. So just to give you a bit of an introduction to functional skills, what they are and why we have them. Functional skill qualifications in England are assessed through 3 parts, meaning that there are 3 separate tasks for you to do to be deemed competent. You have speaking, listening, and communication, which is 1 component, even though it looks like it's 3. You have reading and writing. Is that okay? Yes. Yeah, functional skill qualifications are available at Entrance 1, Entrance 2, and Entrance 3. Now, those levels are generally designed for people with English as a second language, or it may be learners that have found the English language difficult, and they're more about looking at signs, symbols, and pictures and interpreting the English language. Level 1, we're looking at proper sentence structure and using English language flowing correctly. And at level 2, we're looking at a comprehensive use of the English language. Is that okay? Do you understand? Does that make it easier to understand? Well, that's okay. I'm not being assessed. So, moving on then, we've got the speaking, listening, and communications. And looking at that, we're looking at the components that you've got to look at. Now, it's important to understand that when you do your speaking, listening, and communication assessment, your tutor will advise you of the date, time, and place that that assessment is going to take place. The speaking, listening, and communication assessment is a controlled assessment, and therefore you need to kind of get into your mindset that it is an exam set conditions when you undertake it. Throughout these sessions, Scott, your tutor, is going to advise you about the tasks and the types of things that you're going to discuss during your speaking and listening. Speaking and listening within the functional skills qualifications are defined as unwritten communication and are normally conducted face-to-face. Depending on your circumstances, we may have things around reasonable adjustments, and therefore we might be able to do them remotely if that's appropriate. And that's generally if you're working within a high-risk area and it's not appropriate for us to come and assess you within the natural working environment. So, moving on, the guidance gives us a little bit about things about reasonable adjustments, about visual impairment and hearing impairment. And we'll email this document to you after. You can have a look and see some of the things it discusses within there. Moving on, we then have our reading component. Now, the reading component within functional qualifications are defined as using the written language and text in a purposeful context. So that's not necessarily reading 50 Shades of Grey or Harry Potter, even though that may be purposeful to most people. It's more about using it in the everyday language and everyday context. Can you read letters? Can you read emails? Can you read care plans? Can you read your company's policies and procedures? And do you understand what they mean? So we're looking for two skills here, really. We're looking for your skill to read the text, but then also to understand and interpret the text. Again, alongside any of the functional skills, we have reasonable adjustment that can be taken into account. And if you feel that you need to talk to your tutor about reasonable adjustments, you need to do that early on within your course. We do have on our website, under www.educations.co.uk, our reasonable adjustments. And yes, Louise, we've actually dealt with your reasonable adjustment statement, so that's okay, thank you. And under there, we can identify what adjustment we can take. There is absolutely no point a week before your test saying to your tutor, I need a reasonable adjustment. Reasonable adjustment takes time to consider, and sometimes we have to go to the awarding organisation to seek authority, so do bear that in mind. Don't feel that a reasonable adjustment is cheating or is there as a negative term. It is to promote your learning and help you to facilitate the best possible outcome for you. Writing, which is the third part within your functional skills, is defined as using the English language to write text or communicate in a purposeful context. So again, it's not about writing a novel or War and Peace. It's about, can you construct an email and convey the message? Can you write a letter and convey the message? Can you write a memo and convey that message? And sometimes the English language is lost through written communication. And strangely enough, you're all going to say to your tutor, well, I know how to write a letter. I know how to write an email. But believe it or not, there is a correct way of doing it. And Scott, your tutor, will show you the correct way of doing it. If you don't follow the correct way of doing it, you will actually lose marks in your exams. Thus, it's really important to follow the guidance that Scott gives you around using the English language correctly and to convey your message in a purposeful manner. Now, we're going to run through the standards, and there you can see we're looking at E1, and I'm not going to run through these. I just wanted to show you what the E1 looks like. And again, just so you can see the differences between the levels. So for example, E1, writing, you only need to write a short, simple sentence. And within that, you are allowed errors through that. It's about being supported and about just a simple sentence structure. More really suited for learners with English as a second language, or learners that are using English for the very first time for a very, very long time. Level 2, entrance 2, you can see there under writing, you need to write a short text and, you know, identify an audience. Now, we kind of use the English language here in a very interesting way, because when we say intended audience, you all of a sudden think I'm going to be Shakespeare standing on play, preaching or talking, and that's not the case at all. Your intended audience might be who's the letter designed for, or who's the email designed for. Okay, E3, you can see this building up now, can't you? Where you need to use text and adaptations to the audience. And again, the adaptations will be your paragraphing, your sentence. Is it logical? Are you using better grammar? Are you using appropriate verbs? And that you're planning your document. And that's your plan, your draft, and is it organized? So you can see at E3, we're bringing the English language together in a more structured way. Does that make sense, Louise? Are you happy with that so far? Whilst you're waiting to comment, I shall carry on. Yeah, unfortunately, one thing around the internet, I control the assessment world, but I can't control Richard Branson and fibre optics. So every now and then the line will break. However, don't worry, this obviously comes in a link at the end of the session because it'll be uploaded to YouTube and you can watch it back. But also, you do have the documents you just sent. Now, at level 1, you can see that the functional skill has changed slightly. And here, you can see that the level 1 is now assessed via an exam. And for that, you need to achieve at least 55 to 60% to pass the test. And there you can see you'll need to write a range of texts to communicate information, ideas, opinions using formula styles, and to ensure that it's suitable for their format. Within the test, what you tend to have is you'll have a paragraph to read, and you'll be asked to, say, for example, write a letter, and write an email, and write a staff memo. And what they're looking for is that you've used the correct styles and used the correct information. Level 2, and this is the level you're doing, you can see there, you can see you're speaking and listening. You need to make a range of contributions to discussions in a range of contexts, including those of an unfamiliar, and make an effective presentation. So what we'll do later on, discuss what that looks like and how you prepare for that. It sounds a little bit daunting, but it's not as bad as it looks. And you can see there on the cover and the range on the outcomes that you're going to be assessed against. So here, you'll be assessed against whether you've considered complex information. Now, complex information depends on how much you know about that subject or topic matter. And for us to be able to assess that, we tend to give you a subject that you're unfamiliar with, thus giving you an opportunity to show research and an opportunity to show understanding. You'll then present your information and ideas clearly and persuasively to others. So if you remember at school you may have done debates and things like that, it's similar to that. You'll have a discussion with your peers and your manager maybe, and your assessor will watch you talking to your colleagues about getting your ideas across and getting them to join with your thoughts. And that's about persuading people and presenting your information in a clear way. Now, some people may not agree with you, and that's absolutely fine, but the idea is, have you presented your information in a way where it is clear and concise? C, you'll need to adapt what you're doing to suit the audience. So again, when you're doing your presentation, are you doing it to a small group or a large group? If you're doing it to a small group, you won't need as much information because you'll be able to bounce off and you'll be able to control that. When it's larger groups, you'll have to think about how you're going to control your audience because that's a lot of voices in a room that you'll need to manage during those presentations. And that's about adapting what you're doing to suit the purpose. And the final part is you obviously have to make a significant contribution. And what that means is your contribution needs to be greater than that of the others. Now, again, people will argue what significant means. It basically means during your discussion, you have to talk more than your team. So when you do your presentation, you can't just say, okay, let's debate public politics, and you just as a mediator. You actually have to lead that discussion, drop your thoughts in, and manage that. So Louise, does that make sense for around your speaking and listening? Does that give you a clear understanding of that? Super. Well, we'll move on. Reading. At level 2, you'll select, read, and understand, and compare texts. So comparing texts generally means comparing texts basically means you've got to look at two different types of information, read and summarize them, and put them side by side, and gather your ideas and information, and to show that you considered both texts and to look for similarities within the text. You need to select and use different ranges and types of texts. You'll need to read and summarize them. You'll identify the purpose of the text, and you'll look for the main points of views and how does that impact the audience. And again, as we go through this and as Scott takes on those sessions, he will talk about those. Within reading, you'll have to analyse the text in relation to the audience and consider their responses, and you need to read 3 or more texts, and usually within the assessment they are 3 different types of texts, and you usually have formal and informal. Finally, the last part within your functional skills is your writing, and within this you'll need to write a range of texts including extended written documents, communicating information, ideas, and effectively participate and be effective and be persuasive. For that, you'll need to present your information and ideas logically, and that may be, for example, within the test, they give you an activity to do, and you'll write about that task. And within your writing needs to be clear. It needs to have a beginning and an end. You need to make sure that you start your sentences with capital letters and that you've got the good grammar within writing. And also that you're writing in the right range. So are you writing as the first person or the third person? So again, to make sure that when you are presenting your ideas, that you're presenting them and the reader understands it. You'll need to present your information on complex subjects. And again, at level 2, the complex subjects tend to be things of controversial issues and debates. So it may be things which strike a chord with people, and that's really to provoke a bit of emotion within your writing and to see whether you can write in a way where you convey your message through that written text. You need to use a range of written styles for different purposes. So that suggests that you will be writing a letter, an email, a memo, and different types of styles within that. And then finally there, you'll use a range of, you'll use a difference of sentences, paragraphs, and obviously structure. You can see the last parts there, then you'll need to ensure that you've got correct apostrophes, commas, etc. and that your spelling and grammar is correct. Now, some people are very, very, very good at the English language, and beyond all reasonable doubt would achieve a pass, but when they're faced with a PC in front of them, they tend to crumble. And that's purely because they've not been practicing their typing skills. And again, the exams are timed, so it's really important that you practice your typing skills to convey your message, because typing is different to handwriting. Through the rest of the document, it then goes on about your compliance things around the schemes for assessment, and they're really aimed at the awarding bodies and organisations. And your awarding organisation is Skills First. So hopefully you found that useful to just run through the off-qual guide and show you the meanings around that. What I'm going to do now is show you the Skills First website. And Skills First are your awarding organisation for your functional skills. If you type in www.skillsfirst.co.uk, and you'll have your home bar on the top left hand corner, and if you scroll along you'll see the option that says qualifications, and then on there you'll find the one that says functional skills. So you can see here, during your English, you're embedding ICT as well. So go you lot. Down there, you can on the functional skills options for English levels 1 and 2. There, you've got your qualification, overview, and qual specs. Here, you can see the qualification number is FSEO2 for functional skills English level 2. And you've got your qualification date and review date. So you can see they're live until the 31st of the 8th, 2015. Which means we have to make sure that your exam's sat by that date. Okay. Here you'll see related documents, and this is the functional skills handbook. So if you click on that, and then a pop-up will come, and you can open that up, and this is their qual spec. Now, the qual spec, or the qualification spec, is a handbook designed to give you an overview of your course and to understand the different components. So here you can see you've got level 1 and level 2. Very much like what we've just looked at, it talks about what functional skills are and how they're going to be assessed. So the first lot of the book really is the guide about just telling you about who the set skill counsellors are, who your qualifications are, who a centre is, and who they are. Now you may go, oh, why do I need to know all of this? And it's actually really important that you do know all of this, because when an examiner may talk to you, they're going to say to you, so what do you know about your functional skills? And if you go without anything, it looks a bit odd that you're on a course and you don't know anything about the course, would you? You wouldn't buy something in a shop and know nothing about it. So why would the taxpayer pay for you to do a qualification and you then know nothing about it? So it's important that functional skills are valuable, they do have a place, and that they are made up of 3 parts. The first part, speaking and listening, the second part, reading, and the last part, writing. You obviously need to understand how they're going to be tested. So again, speaking and listening will be tested via an assessment of observation, and the reading and writing is going to be exam based. You can see here that you've got your guided learning hours, which suggests that each part is going to take roughly 15 hours apiece. As you go through the book, you can see what each component covers. That's a copy of the qual standards that you've just seen. So we've just covered that, so you understand what they are. And then finally, it then talks about the competencies that your assessment team has to have. So for me to be able to teach you your functional skills, I've obviously got over 2 years experience. I have 19 years experience within education. I hold a diploma in education and training, and I hold my functional skills, or my key skills, sorry, to level 3. You can see there for 5.2 about being a learner, but there's no formal entrance requirements. However, we don't want to set people up to fail, and we need to ensure that initial assessment has taken place, which hopefully you've all now done and completed. Moving down, it talks about the requirements for the speaking, listening and communication part. Again, you will be told about what happens within that when you get to that part. And then it talks about preparing for your functional skills reading and writing exam and the conditions that you should be in when you take your exams. There you have a link from the JCQ, and that link just outlines what you can and cannot do during the assessment. It talks about your pass marks, and finally you look at how they're graded and the. So there you can see your level 2 functional skills is obviously equivalent to your GCSE grades. If you fail your exams, there are no limits to the number of times you can sit the exam. However, you must wait a month, and that to give you time to upskill. And every time you fail, we get charged £10 for each resit. So clearly, we don't want you sitting the exams until you are ready, because it becomes a very costly process, and it's the taxpayer that has to pay to keep putting you through them. So we don't want you to take the test until you're fully ready and competent to do so. The last part there, you may be able to access during your functional skills, your dictionary, scribes, word processing, etc. And they all fall under reasonable adjustments. If you feel that your tutor has malpracticed or maladministrated, or you have during the assessment, you obviously need to let us know, and that assessment will go nil and void. And we do have an appeals procedure in place to ensure that everybody acts fairly. And again, they're on our websites, which was shown during your induction under our policies and procedures on our homepage. If you need further information regarding those, you can obviously talk to your assessor or Scott, who's your tutor, and he will provide you with more information. Final bit here is your matrix. It shows the level that you're on, how many papers or exams there are, and how they're marked, and the grades that you need to achieve to pass them. So let's go back to our summary of the session and see if we've achieved it. So the aim of this session was to know who your awarding organisation was. So you now know its skills first. You've seen their website and you've understood the resources that's available. We've looked at the components of speaking, listening and communicating and how you're going to be assessed during those. We've looked at the assessment for reading and the skills that you're going to need to pass that, and we've discussed the types of things that you're going to need for your writing assessment and how you're going to pass those. So, your next steps. What we want you to do for your next session within functional skills will be to focus on the English writing. For this, you'll need to log on and you'll need to go to the level 2 on-screen practice test and follow the link that you've got there, and I believe that's to have a view of the website and practice that. And Scott's going to discuss the practice test in the next session. So the next session you have, you'll be looking at the exam conditions, and you're going to be looking at the types of answers and how they're graded, so you'll understand the types of information that goes in there. So that finally leaves me just to wind the session up. Hopefully you found this a useful, informative session around using functional skills in English Level 2. You understand what they are and how they're going to be assessed, and moving forward, and how you're going to be supported by Scott. So I want to thank you for attending the session. Hopefully you found it beneficial, and I wish everybody luck in moving